So now we're going to take a step further. We're now going to be looking at the stomach, right? So the stomach is now the most dilated part of the foregut, right? And around the 4th week, the stomach derives its shape, whereby we say the stomach is fusiform shape, right? So imagine that this is my gut tube, okay? This is my stomach, right? So when we look at the stomach as this one, we are going to be having the stomach having the anterior aspect and the dorsal aspect. And we are going to be having cells of the dorsal aspect growing to a faster extent than cells of the anterior aspect, right? Like this. The cells of the dorsal aspect are going to be growing at a faster rate, right? They are more active, right? And because the cells, they are more active, the stomach initially it lies in the median, right? In the medium, right? But because of this, it's going to now tilt more obliquely because of growth of these dorsal cells. This will give the stomach that sort of tilt that you see in the stomach. Okay. Another thing that we need to know is that the stomach is not just lying there, like we said. The stomach is not just lying inside the intra-embryonic cilium, or now because we're talking about the stomach, we'll be talking about it as the peritoneal cavity. It's not just lying there. It's suspended by the mesentery, right? We have got a dorsal mesentery and the ventral mesentery. So the dorsal mesentery of the stomach, we call it the dorsal mesogastrium. The ventral mesentery, we call it the ventral mesogastrium, right? And we also need to know something important about the stomach. So the stomach embryologically does not start to develop in the stomach, right? The stomach will start to develop here around the level of the C2 vertebra, around the 4th week. So around the 4th week, it will be like somewhere up here in the cervical region. Yes. And then it will start to develop, and around the 11th week, it will reach its normal position, which is around the level of T11, right? So that's how the stomach descends. Okay? Yes. So now, if we are looking at the stomach as it's descending, it's now going to be related. And anteriorly, you are going to be having the ventral mesentery, posteriorly, the dorsal mesentery, and not called the dorsal aorta behind it, right? Anteriorly, you're going to be having the ventral mesentery. And here, on the lateral aspect, you're going to be having those pleural cavities, if you still remember correctly, as it's descending. Right? So when it descends, it will reach to a point whereby laterally it's now related to the pleuroperitoneal canals, which will then become a diaphragm. But now we want to talk about the stomach in its natural position. The stomach is accompanied on the left side, on the right side. Okay? So we're going to be having the left vagus on the left side, the right vagus on the right side. Right? This is initially, right? And remember, we just mentioned that the cells on the dorsal aspect, they are going to be growing at a faster rate, right? And this is going to cause the stomach to tilt into more of an oblique position from that normal straight position. Now, after that, the stomach is going to undergo rotation. So, rotation of the stomach, it happens in 2 planes, right? In the longitudinal plane and in the anterior-posterior plane, right? So, if we are talking about the longitudinal plane, right? We are going to be having the stomach. Imagine that I am a stomach, and this is my left vagus nerve, and this is my right vagus nerve, right? The stomach will rotate 90 degrees clockwise to such an extent like this, whereby you're going to be having the left vagus more anterior, the right vagus posterior. What was once the anterior surface is now the right surface. What was once the posterior surface is now the left surface. Okay, like this. So this is what happens when we have that longitudinal rotation of 90 degrees clockwise. So now after that, this is why anatomically we say that the anterior vagus triangle receives most of the contribution from the left vagus nerve. This is the reason why, because during rotation, the left vagus triangle was put more anterior and the right vagus more posterior. Right? Okay. So this diagram is showing us a transversal. So we are now looking and we're now trying to see exactly how it falls. So we are going to be seeing when it's undergoing this 90-degree clockwise movement, we have got this dorsal mesogastrium, and this ventral mesogastrium. We have the dorsal mesogastrium also moving in a clockwise direction, and the ventral also moving, right? So we realize that the mesentery also flops and follows the movement of the stomach, right, as the stomach is moving. So what was once the right, because if you are going to be looking at this diagram, you can say that this is the right peritoneum cavity and the left, right? What was once the right will result in formation of what we refer to as the lesser sac or the omental vessel. What was once the left is going to give us the greater sac, right? We need to know this. So as the stomach is rotating, we are going to be having hepatic tissue that is forming in the ventral mesogastrium, and we are going to have splenic tissue around the 5th week forming in the dorsal mesogastrium. Yes. To such an extent that when we are now forming, yes, if you look at this then, when you are now forming, you now have the liver forming on this side, and the spleen forming on this side, and they are also rotating as the stomach is rotating. Okay. And we need to know something that is very special. So the liver has got two lobes, the right and the left lobe. So you realize that the right lobe of the liver is going to be growing at a greater extent than the left. So the right lobe will now continue pushing into this area, and this will result in even more narrowing of this area, which we are now referring to as the what? The lesser sac, right? But we need to know that there is still a connection between this lesser sac and the greater sac through something that you call the epiploic foramen of Winslow, which we are going to be mentioning, right? So now that we have mentioned this about the stomach, we just have to mention the ligaments now, okay? The ligaments that are touching the stomach, right? So the dorsal mesentery of the stomach is going to be giving us the greater omentum, right? Which we know that as the stomach is rotating in all these funny ways, they are going to have it fall over, cover the intestines, right? It's going to fall over in front of the intestines like an apron, come back up and fuse with the ligament of the transverse mesocolon, right? When it does that, we have formed what you call the greater omentum. So here we can, if we are looking at the cross section, we see that there's this connection from the gut tube to the spleen. Since it's joining, this is the mesentery joining the spleen and the gut, we call it the what? The gastrosplenic ligament. Here we are going to be forming the left kidney somewhere here. So we are going to be saying the connection between the spleen and that left kidney in the posterior wall. We call it the splenorenal ligament, right? Okay. So we realize that the spleen is forming in the dorsal mesogastrium. So we are now going to be looking at the ventral mesentery. We're going to see that the liver is forming in between, right? So the connection between the gut, the stomach, and the liver, we call it the lesser omentum, right? The lesser omentum. And it's divided into two. We have got the hepatogastric. Look, they have the hepatogastric ligament and the hepatoduodenal ligament, right? But it's still the same lesser omentum. So the hepatogastric, just in the name, connecting the stomach to the liver. The hepatoduodenal, connecting what? Connecting the proximal part of the duodenum, that we actually mentioned that the proximal part of the duodenum is present in the foregut. So joining the proximal part of the duodenum and the liver as well, right? And along the free edge of this hepatoduodenal ligament, we are going to be having that portal triad, okay? The portal triad, which comprises of the hepatic artery, the portal vein, and the bile duct. It's going to be lying in there. And the edge of that hepatoduodenal ligament, okay? Imagine that it's somewhere, right? It's going to be serving as that epiploic foramen, right? Whereby things can move from the greater sac into the lesser sac, which is continuously being narrowed by growth of the right lobe of the liver, right? So from the liver to the anterior abdominal wall, we also have another ligament, which we call the ligamentum, which is called the falciform ligament, right? So this is the falciform ligament, joining the liver to the anterior abdominal wall, also separating anteriorly, which also separates the liver into the right and the left lobe, right? So those are the ligaments associated with the stomach. What you can also need to know is that arteries, veins, and nerve supply are also moving in these ligaments. So we'll be saying that in this, between the spleen and the stomach, here will be lying, if you remember, the left gastroepiploid from the splenic artery is also going to be moving in this ligament, right? So everywhere we are going to be having arteries, veins, everything that's moving in these ones. It's just like I mentioned that the hepatoduodenal ligament, we are having that portal tribe. Okay? So that's all we might need to know about the stomach. Now we need to talk about the other rotation. Like we had left out the anterior-posterior rotation. Right? So anterior-posterior rotation, imagine that this is still our stomach that is rotated like this, right? Already taking this shape. This is the cranial aspect, okay? So you can see this is the cardiac portion, the pyloric portion of the stomach. It's going to rotate in such a way that the pylorus moves upwards and to the right. Then you're going to realize that the cardia moves downwards and to the left, right? So this is the rotation that occurs in the anterior-posterior plane. So that we will be having this region that was once of the dorsal region, as that is connected to the dorsal mesogastrium, is now going to be forming the greater curvature. And because dorsals are more active, you realize that the greater curvature of the stomach is sort of large as compared to the lesser curvature, which is now on top like this. And then because of this rotation that has occurred, we are going to be having the stomach now moving. Where the stomach initially lies in the middle, it's now going to start lying more on the left side due to these rotations that are occurring. So that's about the stomach rotation. Okay, so now that we have finished talking about the stomach, since it's also part of the foregut, we say everything in the foregut is getting its arterial supply from the celiac trunk. So the stomach is going to be supplied by the left gastric artery from the celiac trunk, by the right gastric artery coming from the common hepatic artery, by the left gastroepiploic and the right gastroepiploic. All these are coming from, and also even the splenic artery by short gastric branches. All these are branches of the what? The celiac trunk. So, because the stomach is in the foregut, by the celiac trunk. Okay? Now that we have finished everything, we can just speak about where things in the stomach come from, right? So, remember the stomach is also part of the gut, so it has that arrangement of inner endoderm and outer splanchnic mesoderm. So you've got the epithelium, the gastric glands, the gastric pits, all those things, they are going to be coming from the what? From the endoderm, right? From now, the smooth mass of the stomach, the connective tissue, most of the layers that are outside, they're just going to be coming from the what? From the splanchnic mesoderm. Also, another point to note is that neural crest also plays a role in actually in stomach, because those neural crests that we once mentioned before, we're going to realize that this neural crest will be forming our autonomic nervous system. This is our submucosal plexus and the mesenteric plexus. So that's basically what we need to know. So what can go wrong within formation of the stomach? Number one, we have a condition that we call pyloric stenosis. So we have pyloric stenosis whereby we have narrowing of the pylorus, which is the distal end of the stomach, right? So what we see is whenever a child that is got this condition eats, there will be ejection of food, okay? Soon after they eat, they will eject the food out, okay? So this is something that you can treat surgically. You can actually cut or reopen the pylorus. So this happens when we say that the whole gut tube undergoes that process whereby the endoderm covers everything and the recanalization. So during recanalization, if it does not open enough, we are going to be having that condition. So, and we also, since we already mentioned that the stomach will descend due to lengthening of the esophagus, right, from C2 to T11. We're going to have in the stomach, as it's descending, if the esophagus does not descend enough, okay, take me again. If the esophagus does not lengthen enough, right, you're going to be having a stomach that lies in the thoracic cavity. So most of the time, this thing is actually asymptomatic. Let's say someone comes with pneumothorax and you're doing an X-ray, you'll be shocked and you find a stomach that's lying in the what? In the esophagus, in the region of the thoracic cavity. So those are the two main Bye.